Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Beyond the Credits and Chords. I am your host, Practical. I am joined by the fellas.
Danny boy.
It's your boy Rex.
Good evening, this is Brandon.
And today we are going to talk about industrial rock band Nine Inch Nails. We're going to cover 5 of their albums in particular, all picked by our boy Bonk. He chose Pretty Hate Machine, the EP Broken, The Downward Spiral, The Fragile, With Teeth, and Year Zero. We're going to talk about those 5 albums as the episode goes along. Thank you for joining us. Danny, why don't you take us away?
Yeah, I didn't really listen to these guys like growing up. I knew of them, but like wasn't really into that genre of music, I guess you could say. I would say definitely got more into them once I met Brandon, and he kind of, showed me some of the good stuff, obviously a lot of from these albums. But for me, it was nice to go and actually like listen and pay attention to a lot of this stuff with a better ear, I guess you could say, for it. Versus if I had, not really listened to them at all and then gone in kind of blind, I think my judgment would have been a little bit different. But these guys are fucking good, dude. It's not everybody's cup of tea, industrial music like that, but they definitely nailed it. And for me, it's that first album is my favorite. I think it's absolute perfection all the way through. So that's kind of how I judge, the other stuff based off of that album, which is tough to say because like we've been saying on this podcast before, a lot of these bands get better as they go on, and obviously these guys do with Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross being so successful post Nine Inch Nails or away from Nine Inch Nails, even though they're not really broken up. But yeah, this was a good choice from my friend here. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much. But yeah, what about you boys? What did you think about?
Weird. This music's really
Weird.
fucking weird. Like, I'm just gonna come out and say it, not in a bad way. I didn't know that this was considered industrial rock or metal. I didn't know any of that. But just listening to these guys, first off, I thought they were like more of like a softer version of like Slipknot, like no screaming, but really heavy. Like that's what I thought Nine Inch Nails was like a pretty heavy progressive rock.
Did you think there were 9 members?
No, I thought there
Okay.
was only two. I thought there was Trent and a dude named Ian Rubin. That's who I thought the other member was. I always thought there was two. What is his name?
Elon with an I.
Elon. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Elon
Like Ian
Rubin.
when people say Ian.
Yeah, well, no, it's Ilan, Elon Rubin. Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I've seen him play at the Palladium. That guy rips.
I only know him from he's the drummer in Angel and Airwaves now.
Really?
Yeah, he's been their last album they did that I liked was Dreamwalker, and it was I think only really him, Ryan Sin, and Tom DeLonge. But anyways, that's who I thought the two members were. But from what I come to understand, it's only one guy really, Trent, and he just has people who produce and come in as tour members and recording members, but it's generally Trent.
Yeah, he's really the driving force of Nine Inch Nails for sure.
He's the main man.
Yeah, so it was interesting. It was definitely interesting because just listening to the first few albums, there was always some weird stuff. It always started out with some weird instrument, some kind of sound. Like I wrote down two notes about these guys, and I put
Min.
Weird.
I put weird, and then Terrible Lie, the song, I was like, oh, this guy kind of sounds like Phil Collins. Well, I put sounds like Genesis, aka Phil Collins. So that's what I put. So because they're in that song Terrible Lie, I'm listening to it, and I'm like, damn, this guy's a great singer in this. Like, this is a kind of old album, but this is a
Phil
sweet
Collins,
song, and he
that's awesome.
sounds like Phil Collins. I was like, oh shit.
Little sob bubble of Tarzan pops up in the back of his head.
Dude, imagine, that Tarzan song redone by Trent Reznor.
That's what I was saying. The whole album,
Soundtrack done by Trent.
that whole soundtrack. So yeah, no, I thought they were cool. First time coming through, I still feel like it's kind of like a Mastodon thing. Listening to them once or twice wasn't enough, but they were pretty sick. He was pretty sick. Sometimes I don't know. Nine Inch Nails. They were
Sometimes it's the day.
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
It's collaborative for sure.
Yeah. So Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah.
Well, Brandon, what about you?
I mean, I picked him. I love these guys.
Yeah, but the listeners need to know why you picked him.
Trent Reznor is freaking sick, brah. I actually love I've been listening to these guys for a really long time, since I was in middle school. When I first discovered what kind of music I liked, because before, you're kind of that age, that 12, 13, you're kind of beholden to whatever your parents like, right? And then
Mhm.
you make friends that are more into, their own stuff, and you kind of like branch out on your own. And Nine Inch Nails, Tool, long story short, like all these bands kind of like were my first foray into like, the metal genre, the rock genre. Nine Inch Nails for me, it has stood the test of time. I still love like a lot of those other bands, but they are nowhere near as prevalent on my like playlists or best of albums as Nine Inch Nails is. I really like his musical journey, where it just reminds me of me and the way I discovered him. Starts off super pissed off, you kind of stay pissed off for a really long time, and then you get kind of mellow, but there's still that underlying pissed off.
This guy's got a lot of tension built up.
And then just kind of like like a dark, kind of brooding atmosphere. I'm not saying that that's like I'm not that way or whatever, but it's just stuff I identify with a lot of the themes in the music, and I like the journey that it has taken over the years, even up to stuff like Hesitation Marks and Add Violence, and his more recent work on movies and stuff like that.
Hell yeah.
Chesner.
For me, I grew up with Nine Inch Nails. My dad was into them, and he's led me to like 90% of the music I listen to, one way or the other. I also was a very pissed off youngster, and I listened to a lot of Nine Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson at the time because they were intertwined. They were buddies in the beginning of both of their careers. In fact, we have Marilyn Manson because of Trent Reznor. He helped him record some stuff.
Protege, yeah.
Yeah, and the two of them together, until new metal came out, because these guys were quite a few years before that. These were my outlet for anger before I discovered Slipknot and things like that, because there's always a journey, like Brandon says, and Nine Inch Nails was that early anger for me, and Trent Reznor started in the game pretty fucking pissed off. And there's a lot of cool facts about Trent Reznor that I love. A couple that I'm going to spout off is like things like him moving into the house that Sharon Tate was murdered in and recorded the Downward Spiral, and even kept the door that Piggy was written on when he moved out. So just little things like that. He's a very dark individual, and he's mellowed out a lot, like Brandon has mentioned, in his older age. So he's not so dark and brooding, but he does have that underlining angst. But he was a goth figure for a very long time as well. He's a very interesting dude, and early albums by them are among their best. I was actually going to disagree with Danny. I don't think they've gotten better in terms of how Nine Inch Nails is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I do love the soundtracks that they do, and I think
I
they're
was gonna say maybe the fact that he's not doing heroin anymore is why I think it sounds better, but
yeah, maybe. I mean, just different eras. I just prefer the early era of them all the way up to about With Teeth. So I'm happy we're going to be covering pretty much all that stuff. And again, not to take anything away about where they are currently, I still think they're great, but they're great for different reasons. And if I had to, talk about modern Nine Inch Nails, it would not be with the same joy and whimsy as the original era, the older era. They used to be a full band as well, where for a while there was discernible members, and there would be crossover between the members of Marilyn Manson for touring and shit like that. Like Piggy D, he was a member of both bands and toured with both bands for a little while. Charlie Clouser, you guys might know him from creating the Saw theme, which is also
yeah.
pretty awesome.
How about that John 5, your guy John 5, no?
Yeah, there was a little bit of crossover there too, but not so much with Nine Inch Nails. He wasn't really involved with them too much, but he knew some of those members because of the Manson thing and things like that. And then, going forward, Nine Inch Nails turned into what we know it as today, which is Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross doing soundtracks. So it's quite the journey, and it's very similar to Dr. Dre's journey, as that they both ended up being like the masters of their own destiny, and we both talked about them pretty recently. All that said, let's start jumping into the music itself, as we always do. Let's start off with the lyrics. We'll do our normal tidbit talk about that, and I know Brandon's antsy to talk about certain aspects of those lyrics, just for the comedic value alone. But there are other meanings as well. So, Danny, why don't you tell us what you take away from Nine Inch Nails lyrically?
But like,
Well, I think we all
suck.
can agree, and we'll all say no. Wait, Michael Trent Reznor, little trivia there, is a very what's the word? Vulgar gentleman. He uses some pretty vulgar language and lyrics. A lot of sex. You could tell he's got a lot of pent up anger, obviously, as you guys were mentioning earlier. But yeah, his delivery is what really puts these lyrics, in like a profound manner for you that really hit you hard. The way that he sings them, or his dictation and stuff like that, and raising his voice and whatnot. So it's kind of interesting because yeah, like I was saying, I feel like later on as it goes down, he's getting more comfortable with, like singing versus like the shouting, I guess you could call it, because it's not really screaming. I mean, there's some screaming, but it's more like shouting. I feel like, which I'm usually not a big fan of. But if you have a good voice for it, then yeah, there's certain guys where like, oh man, don't even get me started on who. But them being able to shout like that and not have that annoying voice is huge. So, but yeah, the lyrics are dark. They're pretty damn dark. I can't really remember too many off the top of my head, but lot of sex involved. Yeah, that's for sure.
Dude, I think it's the Fragile album.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was just a whole sex album. I'm pretty sure it's that one. I kept like looking back in and I'm like, what is he saying to me right now? What's going on?
I think it's a theme across all of his albums for sure.
Yeah, it's that like gothic masochistic fucking sex addict type mentality that the early career definitely was all about. Like that's why they would use Nine Inch Nails in movies where there was like fucking like a sex club going on in like the depths of New York City slums. Like you would always hear a fucking Nine Inch Nails song in those movies during the 90s when they would walk into that shit. Like it's no secret really. It's just something he's kind of evolved out of. What about you, Rex? Because you said weird, so I know it can't just be the sex shit. So what were your takeaways lyrically from Nine Inch Nails and Mr. Reznor?
The weird part I was more pertaining to just instrumental choice and like how they lead into songs. Also, I didn't realize these guys started in the end of the 80s, which is crazy because listening to the first album, I never would have ever guessed this album came out
It
in
almost
89.
sounds like it's like one of their newer ones. Like
It sounds like
I
it's
felt the
from
same
early
way.
thousands. Like
Right.
I was like, cool. I was like, this is like early, like because I looked real quick at the Fragile and I was like, oh, 99. I was like, oh, this must have been like around when Third Eye Blind was going on. And then I was like, holy, this one's from 89. But anyways, that's what I meant by weird is their instrumental choice and how he kind of weaves it into the music.
Yeah.
Lyrically, yeah, no, it's definitely like sexually charged angst and definitely some dark stuff. But again, I've only listened to a few of them twice and all of them one way through. So it's kind of hard for me to pick up everything, but he's definitely whispering in your ear something weird. So, but I can't
Wants to
say
blank
that
you
they
like an
got
animal.
better. Yeah, like he wants to give me the world and yeah,
To
do
feel
stuff
you
like
from the inside.
he wants to wear me or something. I don't know.
You can't say that to a girl.
I mean, I think it depends on your relationship with said woman.
That's repulsive. I want
It's
to
the woman.
feel you from the inside. Come on. Good God. Have some class.
I mean, nope, never mind.
I refuse to comment on that
I'm-
as well.
Yes.
But no, the dark undertones are cool, and he's definitely lyrically talented. I think, what is it? Flawless Teeth? Is that the album?
With
Sorry, I'm
teeth.
just
With teeth.
with teeth. I really like this album. This album, I think, is their popular one. This is the art I know the most.
Yeah,
Like the
that's like
artwork,
the
I feel
rock
like I've
band
seen.
album, you know.
Okay, so yeah, I really liked when we got to this album.
Mr. Dave
So
Grohl on
that
the drums on that album.
so that might be part of the reason I like this one a lot. But I thought all the way through this guy's pretty consistent and really interesting choices in music. Like I said, I didn't know him in Maryland had that kind of mix, and I've never heard of industrial rock. But whatever it is, it's pretty sweet.
You never heard of like Ministry or The Killing Joke or like Skinny Puppy? None of that stuff. Yeah, it's its own subgenre, and there's not really there's a little bit of crossover with that and like new metal in the early years too. When Rob Zombie was branching away from White Zombie, he started to use a little bit more of an industrial edge. And what industrial usually means is like something that's got heavy samples in it and electronic drums. Those are usually common themes, but it's usually darker and it kind of clubby, but dark clubby and like industrial.
Terrible Lies, that was a great example. I always tell people, they're like, what does that music sound like? I'm like, here, you put that one on that like weird like outro where it's like,
The Phil
like
Collins
yeah.
song, my Phil Collins song.
There
Yeah,
you
tell
go.
me
Yeah.
It's
why.
basically called industrial as a like if you were a group of dudes working on the fucking railroad and you made some songs, it would be like industrial rock, like or like in a warehouse. You'd grab whatever you had and made music. That's where that term came from, but
I
it
wanna
evolved into a lot
Some
more.
dude
stop getting
dangling from
animal.
change in a dark warehouse, like freaking.
Yeah,
That's who's composing the music.
exactly. Yeah.
Like almost literally, actually. Like,
I love the visuals from Danny.
Hey man, this is good visual for the people, okay?
Well,
Yeah.
what about for you, Bont? What about the lyrical content?
it's awesome. It's a lot of fun.
Fun.
Coming inside and
That song, I turned it off when I was around my girlfriend.
dude, and just
Like,
like
I remember that song being the banger in like '95 and watching that music video on MTV when he's just like in the chair, like spinning around.
well,
Yeah.
that's a different song, but
Absolutely.
I thought you were talking about Closer. Sorry.
no, I wanna come inside of her. Yeah. But it does have like a porno bass, boom, and then that Sanctify, yeah, it's got that porno bass, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
What are you watching?
That shit'll get you cut, dude.
You watching Burt Reynolds porn or what?
No, but and like I said, I like the progression of his lyrical content. How it does go from like darkly sexual and pretty hate machine, to very blasphemous and anti-religion in the downward spiral, to anti-corporate themes in the fragile and basically selling your soul for a record kind of stuff. And then yeah, With Teeth comes out and it's like a total, and I like that album, but it's like a total rock band album. It's like, what was your last album just about, bro? Like you got like the most generic corporate rock drummer in that album, which I know you love him, but that's how I feel about Mr. Grohl. But With Teeth is good. It's got some good. Only is one of my favorite songs, but that's another song that's like, man, that could be a porno song for sure.
Jeez.
Year Zero was cool. I was freaking singing survivalism all week, but I was when I was listening to him, I wrote some words down that kind of like how it made me feel the music. I got 9 words, and the 9 words for Nine Inch Nails. So
I made a theme for it.
Dystopia, sadism, masochism, nihilism, sex, fatalism, a lot of isms, voyeurism, death, subjugation. Again, I could add more. Blasphemy. That's a big one that I stupidly missed, but it didn't fit the theme of 9. I'm sorry. Like, there's a lot of words I could write about them, but 9 for 9.
What,
Anyway.
David Fincher, dude?
And then I didn't know that he didn't write the lyrics for "Get Down, Make Love." I didn't know that was a Queen song, because it just
Yeah, it's a cover song.
it totally sounded just like something he would have wrote.
Well, all these guys are influenced by somebody,
Yeah, they're all fucking in the street too.
What?
Dude.
You gotta listen to the lyrics of these songs, man. They're out there. For me, lyrically, we've already touched on pretty much everything between the 3 of you guys already. I don't know what more I could really add to it other than that Trent Reznor is very descriptive and he's very good at using very few words to get his point across, which I love. And I think lyrically, that's kind of a lost art, especially in rock music. And I think Trent Reznor is a standout in that regard.
The double entendres.
Exactly, yeah, and that comes a little bit from his very mild hip hop influence too. Like he's talked about some of that stuff, so it's a cool thing with Reznor because he's just an all around guy, and he's gone through so many different cycles of themes, and Brandon pretty much hit every one of them on the head. So that's pretty much all the time we'll spend on lyrics for that because again, there's really not much more I can add to it. But musically, I got a lot to say. Unless you guys steal all the words from out of my mouth there too. You never know. But Danny, why don't you kick us off in the industrial rock band that they are? Musically, what do they do for you?
If I was a DJ and I had one of those, I guess it's like a sound sample board, dude, I would use like every sample that those guys use, like the industrial, just like the clang where it sounds like a hammer hitting fucking metal. A lot of the drum beats are fucking really, really sweet. I love messing with that. Like whenever I had like an electronic keyboard in front of me, my grandpa used to have one when I was a kid. He was a musician. I would always put it on like the drums on the keyboard, and I always liked the way that you could do different tones and sounds. And hearing a lot of this music brought me back to that and made me realize like damn, dude, like I kind of had that, all that, at my fingertips, literally. But no, I think it sounds cool because it really completes the sound of the band. Obviously with Trent and his lyrics and the way that he sings vocally, that type of industrial sound, those synthetic sound effects really pull the whole thing together and make them as good as they are, in my opinion, at least. And the guitar is so sweet. Like, it could be so subtle at sometimes, and then it could just be so prevalent. Just a terrible eye. It's just like that down, down. It's simple, but it's like getting the song across. Like,
Dude, Last. That fucking song
yeah,
shreds.
yeah. And then like on the Fragile is really good. I think you know what? That's not on that album, but I really like that song Reptile. That
Downward
one to
Spiral.
me, Downward Spiral. But yeah, just the little differences you can see on each album, you can kind of dictate what album you're listening to. I was kind of hearing that after a certain point, and then obviously, like we've been talking about, it calms down later in those later albums, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's just like those first three, dude, like are so good. They're just
Iconic.
hard. They're hard to, yeah, they're iconic. They're hard to mimic or to pull ideas from. And some artists have had some success with that. Marilyn Manson's always the one we're going to talk about because he pretty much was Trent Reznor's protege. Trent Reznor wrote a song about him. Actually, it was like a parody song. I think it's Starfuckers Incorporated. That's
Yes.
Marilyn
The
Manson.
one
So
that says, "Until I suck you off, not a drop will go to waste."
yeah,
When I suck you off, not a
yeah,
drop will go to waste.
yeah. But
So he's singing that
yeah,
song from the perspective of Marilyn Manson.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
That
And
makes sense.
and also it's like worth noting that their interaction in their career is very small. It's a very small window of time before they branch off and they're not really associated with each other anymore.
Right,
Pretty much Pretty Hate Machine, Broken, and during certain maybe elements of the Downward Spiral, they're interacting, and then it's pretty much over after that.
right.
Trent Reznor produces Antichrist Superstar, and then that's it. Like 96 is the cutoff, and they're pretty much not involved after that. So it's a very, very short window. They help each other out a little bit, and then they dip, and they kind of dissolve, and their friendship is very strained until recently. Until recently, Trent Reznor held a pretty hard grudge against Manson, and
I
then,
think because it's
yeah.
probably so sober now that they're probably like, dude, what the hell are we mad at each other
We
for?
did
Like,
some crazy shit on
yeah,
heroin.
we
Yeah.
really like that needle, dude. Jesus.
Mhm.
There's picture evidence.
For sure.
Oh, that's probably gonna be the thumbnail for this episode. Or at least I should suggest that. Come on.
That's
Come
too
on,
far.
dude. It's not
Borderline
that bad.
slander, dude. You
Yeah, it's
can't
not
use
that
that
bad.
picture.
We can put the Nine Inch Nails logo over the bad parts.
You see, we gotta respect these artists, even if we don't like their music. We can't fucking.
Hey man, it was on the internet. I feel like you kind of lost respect when that happens.
I do miss that era of them interacting together because it's such a sweet spot of music. Manson's never really sounded quite the same since Antichrist Superstar, but he also evolved in a good way and mature way as well. So the cool thing about the two of them is to see how going their separate ways led into their separate careers. And I know they don't really like to be associated with each other anymore, but you can't talk about either of these guys without mentioning that part
You
of
can't
their
talk about
history.
one without talking about the other. I mean,
Yeah.
look at Marilyn Manson. He has to give everything that he's kind of had for a little bit to Trent Reznor,
Well, yeah, and not to take anything away from Manson, because him and
No.
his band did start a little bit before they met Trent. It's just Trent's expertise in production and things like that, as they became friends, really helped shape his very earlier years. Because there's a couple of albums before Trent gets involved and an EP or something like that where they're just buddies and they're not really like doing musical collaborations until a little bit more seriously in their careers. So it's such a short window though. It's like maybe 3 to 4 years tops. So it's not a ton, and like I said, I don't want to take anything away from either of them. But yeah, Manson owes a little bit to Reznor, and Reznor owes a little bit to Manson because they did kind of help each other out. It's weird. It's like Marilyn Manson was able to help Nine Inch Nails in more of the visual marketing way, and then Nine Inch Nails production wise and name recognition kind of came from Trent. So it's cool. It's a nice little give and take a little bit. But yeah. So what about you, Rex? Musically, what did they do for you other than weird? Or is it just weird? I mean, if it's just weird, it's just weird.
I was actually talking to my best friend about this again, and this is still that lane that Mastodon was in, like the trajectory, I feel like, because there's that other side of music you take. Because we still were talking about it. He's like, hey, what's your podcast this week on? I'm like, Nine Inch Nails. He's like, He's like, so those guys definitely took that route of music. I was like, no, they took kind of branched more, but they're older than me. So that was like right around their peak time. Like when
We're
we were
all
in middle
right.
school, when we were in middle
Sorry.
school, you know, Bayside and Silverstein was like our middle school time when you guys are like in high school. So that's where our kind of jump off point into branching off in metal and rock was, where you
Mhm.
guys were a little older, so you went this way. But either way, I think they're sweet. Like I've heard some of these songs before, but never would have guessed they were Nine Inch Nails. But I like them, and again, like Mastodon, I'll definitely probably keep some of these albums in rotation. And again, it is weird, but in a good way. Like it's the same way I thought about Screaming the first time I heard it. I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And then I'm listening to it, and I'm like, not in a bad way. I'm like, "Dude, what the fuck is this?" And that's how I felt like with these albums, because, like I said, it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be to what it actually was way more interesting and cool. So that's all I really have to say on it with his short time of listening. But I think they're sweet. I think he is sweet. Him and his friends are
Absolutely.
sweet. Whatever, however it works with Nine Inch Nails. But yeah, no, I'll be listening to these guys probably for a long time now.
Are you familiar with any of his movie soundtracks? Can you point any of those out that you like? Maybe no.
Until this episode, when I was looking into them a bit, I saw that he had soundtrack credits and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
He's won 3 Oscars.
He won 3. I thought he only won one for The Social Network.
No, Social
oh, he
Network.
did that movie. That movie's so sick.
Yeah.
I
Social
like that movie.
Network. Now I'm gonna have to. Well, you're my fact checker, Brandon. What the heck?
Dropping the ball already, goddamn.
Nah, I mean, you got me off guard, dog.
I do know that he produced one of Halsey's albums, and then he just did a Gaga album. I think.
So I'm sorry, it's 2
Practical said
Oscars, 2 Oscars, 2 Grammys, and 3 Golden Globes. So yeah, 3 Golden Globes is what I was thinking of. But
Hell yeah.
yeah,
That's tight.
so he won one for the best original score for the movie Soul, which is an animated movie.
I know that movie.
That
but I've
movie's
never
pretty
watched
good.
Yeah, and then
I like
yeah,
it.
I'm pretty sure it was the other one was Social Network. Yeah.
So you know where I fucked up is I was looking at Nine Inch Nails and not Trent Reznor.
Mm.
So he's won awards for music too.
Yeah, they kind of got snubbed for this year because of that stupid. Well, actually, I don't know that one won, but anyways, they got snubbed for Challengers. I just watched that movie recently, and yeah, I mean, for what the movie is portraying, that soundtrack was amazing. It was
I think
really,
that
really
movie,
good.
that soundtrack fits that movie perfectly.
But it absolutely does, yeah. But that's just kind of like what I was kind of chiming in earlier, talking about their music. Like they know how to capture an emotion or an environment. Like you were saying, Brandon, how it kind of teleports you, and it's like a story is being told. Not a lot of like good bands can do that. In a way that they're doing it, is industrial wise, I guess you could say. Because, there's bands where, Coheed and Cambria, Mastodon, they do these epic long, Between the Buried and Me, these epic long, albums that could be a full story. But like with Nine Inch Nails, it's kind of like that, but it's a little bit more depressing or aggressive or whatever, but like it's still there. So that's why I think they're so good with these scores that they do in these films because, man, yeah, go back and watch Social Network and like listen to the music. Absolutely sells that movie,
Yeah. I mean, he did a lot with David Fincher, and I love David Fincher also. So the fact that two like artists that are really big to me eventually collaborate together is
I think
sweet.
they did The Killer. I could be wrong though.
I think he did do The Killer as well.
Which
Yeah.
is the latest David Fincher, yeah.
Yeah. They did like Gone Girl even, I think.
Gone Girl.
I mean, he's been working with them for a long time. There's even like remix versions of Closer in the Seven soundtrack,
Yeah.
They've had a pretty nice relationship for the duration of both of their careers.
Thinking of Closer, there's also a version of that song in the movie The Fan, Wesley Snipes and Robert De Niro, which is so weird. Like, I can't remember the last time I saw that movie, but like that's kind of a cool thing that Nine Inch Nails was, being put in a movie like that. With names like that, you wouldn't kind of expect that or suspect that, but
I mean, it's a pretty dark song. It's about killing yourself, so
correct.
It fits in thematically in a lot of situations, I feel.
Yeah, but I think that's what this band has captured musically wise is why him and Atticus Ross are so good. They're essentially kind of composers. I mean, let's be real. And you don't get a lot of that with a lot of these rock artists and stuff like that. You get other guys like Johnny Greenwood did There Will Be Blood and things like that.
Well, Atticus Ross
is a producer.
Yeah,
and but still, what I'm saying is
and he's only been involved with Nine Inch Nails for a very short time comparatively.
Very short. Yeah.
I know, but I'm more or less peeling off a little bit. Unfortunately, talking about their other stuff.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. No, I got you.
but I think that's why that's so successful, because Trent has such an ear for certain sounds, and
He's in
piano
his
is
own right,
huge.
basically.
Piano is fucking huge, which I don't think is utilized enough, especially in music like this, industrial rock music. Like, you don't think about piano.
Yeah.
What
I
about you,
mean,
Bont?
for me,
What's your
like,
musical take? Yeah.
I just kind of feel like it's the way the music is composed, because I'm not a musician or anything, so I don't like have any insight as to how this stuff comes to be or
You don't know
anything.
beats, you don't know time signature. No, I know very little, so I don't
I
really know.
feel like it's just they all dress up like the Blue Man Group, except they all hate each other, and then they compose this music, and that's how they come up with the sound.
I get what you're saying.
Like, literally, some of it is like banging on a trash can sometimes, or like
Slipknot, baby.
weird rod noises. You just shake a metal rod in a weird way, and it freaking makes a noise.
I like it.
No,
Well,
I love the shit. It's sweet. It sounds cool. Like I said, literally sounds like the Blue Man Group hanging from chains in a warehouse, composing stuff under threat of violence. Like, I fucking love it, dude.
Sorry, every time you say that, hanging from chains, I'm like,
well, and yeah, the cool thing musically about Nine Inch Nails is they came at a time where there was a lot of new wave music, so
It's like
people
the
are looking
anti-new
for an
wave.
alternative. Yeah, this is exactly anti-new wave. It's like everybody's out here listening to fucking Devo and shit like that, and they
Devo's
want.
awesome.
I like Devo too, but I'm
Okay.
talking about the time period, like in 1989, everyone's out here
Right.
listening to
Yeah.
Devo and all these new wave bands, and here comes Trent Reznor, and he's taking some of that inspiration because he's a big Devo fan, and you can tell if you listen to the music, but it's completely different. It's darker, it's angry, it's not really radio accessible at all until a little bit later down the line, even though he did have some success even with Pretty Hate Machine on the radio. There's a bunch of singles on it.
I mean,
Like
his
Down
most
in It had
vulgar
like a
song, one
whole
of them, is
Sin.
always on the radio.
Yeah. Terrible Lie. Yeah, like all of those songs are big. They're kind of almost breaking the new generation, the new decade into a new sound coming off of what was kind of big in the 80s, which is all kinds of shit. You got hair metal, you got new wave, you got all these things, and that's where alternative music came from, was people want an alternative to these things, and here comes Trent Reznor with Nine Inch Nails, along with a slew of other bands like him and like-minded in that regard. Let's change the tide here. Even 2 years later, you got Nevermind from Nirvana. Actually, same year as Pretty Hate Machine, you have Bleach by Nirvana. So, like, there is something happening in the new decade of the 90s. And I think Trent Reznor and his band are a big gateway to that. And musically, they do so much. You have Pretty Hate Machine is just basically an industrial album, right? And then you have the Downward Spiral coming out later, and there's a little bit of everything on there. I mean, some of the riffs he's using could be thrash metal riffs, if you know those albums enough and you hear the patterns in which he's playing the guitars. There's the chugging, there's the fast chugging, but it's all laid over an industrial beat, and it's just so sick because the guy, he's a talented musician, so he's constantly experimenting with new sounds and bringing them into the forefront, even in areas I don't like. There's that ambient era of Nine Inch Nails where I'm not a fan at all. Brandon knows this, like the Ghost era, where it's all just atmospheric and ambient bullshit.
Sweet.
I'm out at that point.
Get
I'm looking for the
ghosted, bro.
band sound, but I mean, I do like the Slip and some later albums too. He's just one of those guys. So you got something, Danny? What you got?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, pretty much reiterating what you were saying. He's doing all these different sounds and all these different things that he's experimenting with, and like you don't kind of take into consideration that like he's thinking of all this pretty much, right? I mean, he's using these other guys to help him record and stuff like that, but like for him to kind of think that all through step by step, like shows a lot about what kind of a musician he is. On the outside, people see him, or they have seen him in the past and they're probably like, this guy's weird, he's a freak, blah, 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 blah. But like, aren't like some of the most brilliant minds, like not the most attractive, physically looking people, or, you just get a vibe about them that just doesn't seem right. But like, he's obviously very gifted. So yeah, no, it's awesome to really like dissect it. And yeah, even the ambient shit, like it's not for everybody. Like I listened to a little bit of it and like it was okay, but I wouldn't necessarily knock them for it. I mean, I feel like maybe it was something they kind of thought about and then they kind of heard it and we're like, maybe let's not do that again, kind of a things.
It's not really. It's not a knock. It's just like there's nothing memorable about it. I'm not going to be like, oh, remember fucking track 6 from Ghost 4? No, that's never going to happen, you know. But like with their other albums, songs that I'm going to memorize and put on playlists. And I've been listening to this band for 20 years, which is crazy to think about. Maybe even longer, to be honest. But I've been into them for a long time. So when I think of Nine Inch Nails, I think of these first 3 albums with Teeth. I think of that shit. I don't think of the ambient, fucking atmospheric, throwing rocks at
I don't think you should, but
throwing rocks at other rocks in the woods and using that echo sound as something to lead into my song. That's not for me. I'm kind of out of it at that point.
That's
But
awesome, dude. That sounds like an
twigs
ASMR.
against twigs. Yeah. All right, well, let's get into the albums now. We chose 5. Brandon chose 5 in particular. I personally love the 5 he chose, with maybe the exception of Year Zero. I wouldn't use the word love on that one, but I do like it. And I've come around to it because I didn't really like it much at the time. But everything else he chose, I find to be fantastic albums. So why don't you kick us off, Danny, with Pretty Hate Machine and how you feel about this album?
This is my favorite. Yeah, it's funny, what we've talked about in the past, as these bands evolve, and sometimes they get better, sometimes they, stay the same, or they get maybe a little bit worse off, whatever. Um, this first one is just like, it got me hooked to where I was like, okay, now I definitely want to listen to this all the way through, because I don't think that there's a bad album on here. My favorite song of all time by them is Something I Can Never Have, which Brandon knows. And it's a slow song, which is so funny. But like the pain and just like, I don't know, the emotion that's in that song, come on and tell me. Like, oh, dude. Sorry, I got to give examples like that because, like, that shit hits me, dude. You know when you get those little goosebumps on the back of your neck? Yeah. But this album as a whole is so damn good. Obviously, that song, I'd say the first like 5 or 6 songs are fantastic. Like, not to take away from the other ones by any means, but yeah, Head Like a Hole, Terrible Eye, Down in It, Sanctified. I do also like Ring Finger, which is kind of weird. It's a little bit later on there, but as a whole, this is still my favorite one. I just love the sound. And like Rex was saying earlier, like, I didn't realize this album was in 1989. Like, I thought some of these songs were like some of their newer ones because of how it sounds and how it's produced, and like, I don't know, it's fucking
Son of a bitch.
right? But I love it. I love it. Yeah, this is a if I had to show someone Nine Inch Nails, this would be the album I would show them.
Okay, all right, interesting.
It's just me, guys.
Well, what would you rate it though? What would you rate it? Like, because you said it's your favorite, so I'm just curious. Is it a 10? Would you call it 10? Okay.
No,
I know we don't really do the rating anymore, but I was just curious.
I didn't say anything because, like, no, this is a solid 10. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. All right, Rex. Pretty Hate Machine. 89.
I don't really know what to say. This album, yeah, like Danny said, I could never have told you this album came out in 1989.
Yeah.
And when I think of 89, I think of like
That's wild.
Motley Crue. I think of Poison. I think of stuff like that I'm really not into at all. So then hearing this and seeing what year it was made, it's crazy to kind of hear all the influence that this really did throughout music, knowing how old it is. Not that if it came out in 2001, it wouldn't be as good, because I thought it was somewhere close to there anyways. But, I can see how new metal kind of branched from this, and same with some other metal bands. And like, yeah, I thought it was cool. Like I said, that Terrible Lie song is sweet. Phil Collins singing it up in that one.
That's such a funny analogy. Like, I literally want to go back and listen to it now and just picture him back on the drums, dude.
I had my beats on. I was sitting there, just sitting on the couch listening to it, and I was like, "This is fucking Genesis right here." I don't know, but
Genesis. Whoa. He didn't even mention the songs. I think it goes straight to Genesis. Damn.
it was just sweet. I'm like I said, it's hard for me to have real great opinions about this stuff, but so far I liked it. And like I said, I didn't know they kind of had an ambiance era where like they're doing all that weird stuff, throwing rocks at rocks, but like it makes sense. But in this
So
stuff,
overblowing it.
I'm just fucking around, but
it's essentially what they're doing. Like I've seen other musicians do it with like a box of marbles, just rolling it around and shit.
Motherfucker, listen to Ghosts and tell me you couldn't take that from my description. That's all I'm fucking saying.
Yeah,
dude.
like shit like that.
Exactly. Listen to how these pages flutter.
It's still interesting and weird, and I like weird. So I'll be listening to all these albums because all of them, there wasn't one album where I was like, dude, is this fucking over? every single album I was like checking any song I kind of liked, and this one had Terrible Lie, this one had Something I Could Never Have, Sin, and I'm sure there was a couple others, but I'm like, this is gonna be one of the ones that'll end up on my playlist, my liked list. So I don't know what that says about it, but I definitely want to listen to it more.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this one's definitely a banger for sure. A 10 out of 10, greatest of all time. You know, you name it, it could be said about it. If there were, something maybe I could say to criticize it a bit, it does maybe drop off a little bit after kind of I want to like you have this like dancey, but I mean even me I'm looking at it, but like
I disagree.
no, I'm looking at it, I'm like no, because Sin rules, that's what I get. The only time is like one of my favorite songs on there, but we don't need to talk about Sanctified again. But yeah, I mean but I don't think for me, yeah, this song is a banger all the way through, even in trying to criticize, like there's so many holes. And yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah, it's been around, it's been with me for a long time, and it's something I always listen to. I always go back to songs on this album.
It's wild to me that between the three of you, nobody really mentions Head Like a Hole. But man, Head Like a Hole is such an.
Because it's like the easy one, you know?
Yeah, but it's such a great album. It kicks off the album and the tone of the album. And like, yeah, it's a big single. Everyone knows it. But it's like, I don't think, it's underestimated as how an album kicks off sometimes. And for that to be the first track, and that lyric for that song has always stuck with me, that I'd rather die than give you control, like that, just that little, I don't know, it's fucking sick. And like I said, I was an angry fucking teenager when I found this album.
Yeah, I love Down in It too. Fuck
yeah, Down in It is great. Terrible Lie is great. I'm actually, you just mentioned it, but That's What I Get, that's probably one of my favorite songs on the album. I love That's What I Get. That song is so sick.
That's What I Get is sick.
Yeah, and it's just, the album has such a great feel to it, and it feels so fucking angry. Even when there's nothing being said, like, you can just feel the rage through this album, and I fucking love it. Which is completely different than the Downward Spiral. And in my opinion, it is anyway. I think they don't sound anything alike. I think there are elements from it, but like, it evolves and takes Nine Inch Nails in a totally different direction. So, as usual, that'll be...
That's why I threw the Broken EP in there. I know it's not technically one of the 5 albums, but I just think it's like such an essential bridge between Pretty Hate Machine and the Downward Spiral.
Yeah, so I mean, let's talk about Broken before we move on too far, because it's a perfect place to put it in there as it is in between. So Danny, why don't you tell us how you felt about that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really give this one too much heart just because it was a smaller one, but
that's
well, I'm sorry. I was more focused on the others. Excuse me.
Man, that means you missed Happiness and Slavery. That's a shame.
I did. I'm so sorry I missed that.
And Wish and fuck.
It's too bad.
Even his cover of Physical is fucking fantastic. But anyway, go ahead.
No. Okay, then never mind. I did listen to that because I actually did like that. But yeah, it's almost like that bridge that we've talked about with other albums where it's going into Downward Spiral, like kind of being a little bit more different from that first one. Yeah, no, Physical. Anytime there's a cover, dude, I'm all over it. Love me some covers, that's for sure. No, I don't understand that. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's interesting because he covers the Adam Ant version of that song and not the Olivia Newton-John version.
No, I know.
But
I know.
No, but I'm just saying that I think that's interesting because Adam Ant is probably one of those guys that was like influential to Trent Reznor's sound. If you've ever listened to his greatest hits, there's a lot of very similar things, and usually you cover artists that inspire you, and that's the first real cover we get from them other than the Queen cover. So it's pretty interesting.
I don't even know who the hell Adam Ant is.
Man, you probably know some of his songs. I'd have to toss them up I'll throw some in the fucking playlist next time we do it. But yeah, Rex, what about you? What about you with the Broken EP? How did you get too into it? I mean, I don't know.
It's like a little bonus that I threw in.
Yeah.
No, it was good. Like I said, it's really hard to have a real great opinion only listening to these things 1 or 2 times through, and you guys have listened to this for 20 years. But this one, Help Me I'm in Hell, is okay. I'd say I kind of skimmed this one a little bit. I don't even know where did this come up in order in the Get Prepped playlist you had for us?
Yeah, it did.
It did.
Then I definitely listened to it.
Yeah.
Then
See, last I
maybe
was like,
happiness and slavery.
man, that song Shred.
Wish. Okay, I'm looking back through the. It's okay. Okay,
The CP rolls. What are you guys smoking, dude? I'll smoke you.
Give me a second here. When I had all of this, when I'm doing my research and I'm listening to it, I try not to listen to it all the way through, except for the last album we talked about. But so I had shit on shuffle. But now that I'm looking at the names of these songs, I'm like, oh, that was that. So now I'm seeing it. But no, Last is good, yes. But no, Wish was another
Sounds
one I
fishy to
really
me.
liked. No, it's not fishy. Shut up.
It's like 4 songs because 2 of them are instrumentals, I love this EP.
All right, these guys pick on me, folks.
I love this EP. I think it's sweet. Yeah, Last is one of my all-time favorite songs of his. So I think that guitar after this is not meant to last, and then it just gets me coming.
Wow.
All right. Well, that's quite the write-up on that album there, but I agree.
Man.
I like the album a lot. I do think the instrumentals are good but not great. I think they're there to kind of fluff this release a little bit. I could say that about a lot of his later stuff too, but I really love Wish. I really love Last. I really love Happiness and Slavery, especially. Happiness and Slavery is probably one of my favorite songs by them, actually. And they have another really good EP too. I can't remember the name of it right now. There's Broken and there's
Fixed.
Fixed is the other one. Those are 2 of my favorite EPs
Pretty
of
logical.
all time. I'm not a real big fan of EPs in general, but those 2 are really good. See, you're not the only one that gets picked on, Danny. This motherfucker over here, shots fired from this fuck too, so.
It sure feels like it. God.
So yeah, Broken, not really a ton to talk about, but the songs we all mentioned are definitely the highlights, and if you're going to do a dive on Nine Inch Nails, definitely don't skip the EPs.
Yeah, don't skip it. It's just, yeah.
Because at the time, a lot of those songs were on soundtracks and shit too. You could hear them in movies.
Yeah, I don't want to go down that road again, how we talk about, those little ones, to me don't count, but
yeah,
that's another story.
I understand, because I kind of feel the same way. EPs always fucking piss me off, but
I love EPs.
Let's move.
Some of them are great.
They can be good, but they just, I wish they were full albums most of the time.
Here's a little taste for you while we're working on something else.
Taste this.
See, but what happens a lot of times in my experience with EPs, it's like, they're like, here's a little taste, and then they come out with an album that sounds nothing like that fucking EP.
Because the EP
almost better.
These EPs are usually cut songs from other shit.
If the EP is good, it makes it better, but a lot of the times I just don't like it as much as the full lengths. The Downward Spiral
on EPs that we like. That'd be good.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad idea. We could do a little extra coverage there. Let's talk the Downward Spiral, though, because it did have a drastic change. I would argue this is actually their most popular album of all time.
Oh, for sure.
With Teeth is definitely their most commercial, I think, but the Downward Spiral is their most well-known album. If you go into a record store and you ask for Nine Inch Nails, they're going to hand you fucking Downward Spiral. At least they should. So kick us off, Danny.
Man, this is such a drastic change. At least to my ear, it was from me liking Pretty Hate Machine. But I kind of, this is one I listened to more than once. Obviously, the first 3, I should say. I listened to more than once, even though I skipped the EP. Sorry. Anyways,
so the truth finally comes out.
Right.
Take another shot.
God, I might. Anyways, no, there's some good ones on here. There's some bangers. Piggy, I like Piggy. Pigs, obviously. Closer is obviously one that everybody fucking knows. Yes, this one has Eraser and Reptile. I like both of those songs. I kind of like the change in between one from the other. Really, really fucking good. And there's a Terminator vibe in, I believe it's in Eraser. Or it might be Reptile. I can't remember because it mixed up with me right now. But anyways, no, there's a part in that song that reminded me so much of Terminator. I'm like, oh, dude, that would have been so sweet. They would have done that. And then Hurt, which is so funny. I thought this song was a cover of Johnny Cash because I am a moron.
I set him straight, folks. I set him straight.
He did. No, I'm a fucking idiot because I'm like, I don't know these lyrics. And so I don't know how it came to be between you and I, practically, what we were talking about it. And you're like, you know that's a Nine Inch Nails song, right? I'm like, wait, what? So that again goes to show you how much of a fan I am. Even though I am, I do really like them now. But more, I kind of like the version more than Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash is dope, whatever. But no, Hurt is a really good song too. So no, this is it's a different approach, but I really, really like the direction they go for this, and then obviously into the next one. But we'll talk about that. So next,
Rex, the Rex word spiral. Hit me with it.
All right. This album, though, like I said, it must be because I just haven't had a chance to listen to these guys, but I don't feel like there's been a crazy difference between this one and their first one. Like, obviously, it's an evolution of them, but I feel like I was still, like, they're still on the same trajectory, not in a bad way, because the album starts off pretty sweet with Self Destruct or Mr. Self Destruct, sorry. Closer, obviously, everybody knows. I do like Reptile, Big Man with a Gun, and obviously the Johnny Cash song Hurt. Love that.
I'll destroy you. You'll be Mr. Self-Destruct after that shit.
This song is cool. It's cool. It's the original one, but one thing that I've always disliked about this song is how much he fucking whispers everything in the song.
that's called emotion, dude.
So there's a version of this song
Like, it's not bad.
without the static in the background, so it makes the whispering not so bad. It's on further down the spiral, if that might clear it up a little easier. Because with the static that goes through all the way through the track with his whispering, it can be kind of hard to hear. So if you want it without the static, further down the spiral.
So I'll check that out. But I mean, obviously at the end it gets great because he comes out and starts, just singing from the heart there. But yeah, for the part of that cover, it's just too quiet for me. I'm like, what are you saying?
He's just talking about putting a gun in his mouth and pulling the trigger. If you want to know.
Yeah, I know what he's saying, but when I'm trying to listen to him sing, and like you said, that static, and it's always this real life. So
Well,
it's hard to hear him, and I'm like, what are you saying? But I know that I like this. I like this album.
It's
Again,
dope, dude. It's just
it's
like
pretty sweet, but I think it's on par with their first one.
that's
Like when I've
that's
listened
cool.
to both of these, I think they're both on par. And when I listen to it more, I'll let you guys know which one I like more. But as of right now, I think they're both on par. I think they're both pretty great and still weird. It's great that they keep weird throughout their entire.
I mean, that's what drugs will do to you.
Yeah, but it can be a bad weird or a good weird.
That's true.
Like drugs can take you two ways, either greatness or terrible, terrible stuff. And this is greatness.
Bad weird would be Crispin Glover. Anyway.
Crispin Glover sucks.
No, dude, Crispin Glover was a god.
I mean, he's awesome, but he's bad weird. When you listen to his album, that's the kind of weird that's just like,
That's my kind of weird, dude. We talk about the bad stuff that is so bad, people like it. That's me.
This isn't crazy. This is not. This is not. This is like.
Don't get me going. Please don't. We're talking about 9 Inch Nails, bro. Come on.
All right, downward spiral, Brandon.
I mean, yeah. What is there to be said about this album? I love it. I love how in its heyday in the mid 90s, it was such a stick in the craw for pussy ass Christian conservatives, putting it on like one of their like banned albums lists. And
is that a Tipper Gore no or what?
I don't think it was Tipper Gore. I know definitely pussy ass Bob Dole had something to do with this shit.
The poor mammoth off the stage, dude.
But no, fuck them. They don't like art is supposed to be challenging and controversial. If you can't handle the themes that are presented within this album, then don't listen to it. Don't fucking try to take this is America. This is freedom of speech. Don't try to censor this shit. I'll kill you. No, it was so. Dolores Tucker, she said this song was gangsta rap, and
What song?
Big Man with a Gun. And so Trent Reznor called her a big fucking idiot. So that's awesome.
I love that.
There's some bullshit that this album like helped, or was part of the reason for the Columbine shooting and shit like that. And it's like, no, it's the people who's to blame are the parents and the children who perpetrated the act. That should only be the only conversation ever, That's where it starts and ends, in my opinion. But the fact that this was labeled under such controversial means only led to me wanting to listen to it more, wanting to engage with it more, because I'm not supposed to. You don't like this, and then I listen to it, and I'm like, oh, like this is there's beautiful music in here, even though it's a depressing fucking album. I think sometimes that's beautiful, you know. Sometimes
I remember when this album came out. I mean, again, I was obviously way too young and I didn't listen to these guys, but like I remember how controversial it was. Now, my question to you, as a fan, as long as you've been a fan, is do you think it only had to do with the music, or was the music videos not helping it? Because, like, dude, watch closer, dude. That music video
oh
is
yeah, no,
pretty twisted.
the music
So, like, do you
videos.
think that had a lot to do with people kind of shunning that away and saying, like, oh, this is, devil worshippers?
Well, the
And blah,
imagery
blah, blah,
didn't
blah, blah.
help. No,
Right. Valid question. I mean,
That was the era of music videos having
right,
their own voice, so it definitely
right.
had an effect on it for sure.
yeah,
Because I remember certain music videos being so controversial, like,
yeah, the
that was
crucified
because we didn't
monkey.
really have the internet back then. I mean, we didn't have these, internet forums and these things where you could discuss these controversial things like we do now. Now it's like talking to a person face to face because it's so accessible. But like back then, like music videos could be controversial. And so I always go back to this music video for Closer and like, yeah, there's some questionable themes in that shit. So I thought maybe that had a lot to do with contributing to why it was so,
Yeah, I
you know,
mean, this is the shock rock era. That's what you got to remember.
right.
This is the era. This is the shock jock Howard Stern era. This is the shock rock era. This is the push the envelope era.
Yeah,
You know, MTV was pushing the envelope. Howard Stern was pushing the envelope. These bands were doing that, and that was the most edgy era. I hate to use that word, but it was the most edgy era in the best possible way. It's
Dude, MTV Grind. Remember when they would have like the dance parties all around the world, and then like girls would be naked, just be like. But like that was like
that was
thinking back to it now and like the climate that we live in, like that shit's controversial. So like I just thought the music video itself was
yeah.
what.
I mean, if you stayed up past 10 o'clock in the 90s, they were trying to sell you Girls Gone Wild.
Exactly.
Right.
The Downward Spiral for me is a hugely important album. I love this album more than most albums. It is one of my favorites of all time. It's been an important album in almost every aspect of my life. I remember buying it, obviously not right away because I was only like fucking 8 years old when it came out.
Yeah.
But when I finally got into Nine Inch Nails, it was my edgy teen years. So I was like 13 years old basically when I started to find this band and what they were into. And the Downward Spiral, even at the time, was the standout album, and it still is to me. I mean, Mr. Self-Destruct, Piggy, Heresy is one of my favorite songs of all time by them as well. March of the Pigs, Closer obviously is huge. I Do Not Want This, Ruiner, Eraser, Reptile. Those songs are all just fucking stand out and great. And then you mentioned Hurt. Hurt was also,
The Johnny Cash cover.
a very, I'll kill you. It was a very great song for the time. And again, pushing the envelope with that type of content because most of the emotions expressed in music were expressed differently before Nine Inch Nails and bands like them came along. So this is super dark, just super. The Cure was around. You had your outlets for it, but it wasn't quite like this.
This is also kind of a big album for him in terms of remixing too. Like he's done that in the past. He had done that in the past, but I feel like he's remixed every song on this album at least twice.
Oh yeah, like I mentioned, Further Down the Spiral is one of them. There's another one about just titled something down the spiral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's the one with the rope spiral on it.
Yeah. So there's, and each album is called Halo something, like Halo 18, Halo 2, Halo 6. There's a shitload of them. And they'll call live albums that, the video releases, all that shit. Great album though. Like I said, overall, to me, it's their best. And this is the album I always give to somebody when they ask me, what does Nine Inch Nails sound like, or what can I listen to get into them? It's the Downward Spiral. So, let's talk one of my favorite subjects on the podcast here. Double album, The Fragile, labeled Left and Right, two completely different kind of sounding sides, but yet it's very similar. Content approach is a little bit different.
Wait, do you hate double albums?
No, I love them. It's just we've always argued about it with Danny because of Hypnotize and Mesmerize with System of a Down. So
two separate albums, Danny. Two separate albums.
Okay, sounds good.
So The Fragile is a double album, like I mentioned, and
2 discs.
Yeah.
Yeah, double.
It's called a double album. So anyway, hit us with it, Danny. Tell us about The Fragile. How do you feel about it?
Left or right? Because I like one disc, I should say, more than the other.
Yeah, one's labeled left, one label's right. Left is the disc with the day that the world went away on it. That's
perfect. Perfect. So I'm a left guy all the way on this. Nothing against that second half of the right album, if you will, but the left one has the ones that kind of stand out to me. The Fragile is awesome. We're in This Together is one of my favorite off of that. Sounds not too different again, but it's more mature for me. This is
Growing up a little
probably
bit for sure.
yeah, this is probably the last one for me where I was like really stoked about them. Not to take away from the other ones that we're going to talk about, but like I said earlier, these first three were like the bangers for me. But yeah, for doing the left to right thing, left was my go to. Those songs that I named. Right one was good. It didn't have any like horrible songs, but like Where Is Everybody and then Starfuckers Incorporated, which I think is so funny reading about Marilyn Manson now after listening to it and reading it, like makes it more funny. And then underneath it all. But other than that, I mean, I definitely preferred that first half versus the second half. So maybe this is kind of where my decline went with them, even though I still like the other ones we're going to talk about. I don't dislike them, but this is where like the high for me kind of went in a downward spiral.
You pussy.
You son of a bitch.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
all right, Rex, the fragile.
Yeah, this album was a little different than the first two and that EP. Definitely, this is the album I'm pretty sure was trying to get me in bed with them. Even looking at these song names, it's we're in this together. No, you don't. Even deeper.
That
Yeah.
sounds like aggressive.
Yeah, no, it was. He was aggressively trying to get me. It was interesting. But no, this I didn't realize this was a double album. I thought it was just a really long album because I kept looking and I'm like, oh, we're still on this
Yeah,
album.
that's probably
We're
with
still on this
Spotify
album.
sometimes.
Yeah, and I just look at the
All
artwork.
times.
So I'm just like, oh, we're still on this album. All right. But no, I'm looking forward to joining you finally. Pilgrimage, like I don't have a separation between any of these. So I don't know right or left, but Frail, The World Went Away, a couple other ones were ones that I definitely looked at my phone app. But yeah, this whole album, I'm pretty sure was definitely is a little darker than I feel like the other two, but in a way, like I said, it was trying to get me into a bed in a dark, dingy bed.
Well,
And would you have refused?
Depends. He was sweetly talking.
well, I think that plays into the theme of this album because he's very clearly disillusioned with the recording business, right? He's a lot of the themes in this. He's taking issue with like the big man in charge and stuff, you know.
So is this when he freaked out on his record label and wanted to get out of his contract? Is this
I
around
think
that
that
time?
happened because of this album, probably.
Okay. Okay.
Because again, double albums, I mean, they cause a lot of strife because record studios do not want to put these motherfuckers out because no one buys them. I mean, a lot of people disprove that, like Smashing Pumpkins and Nine Inch Nails, but
System of a Down.
okay.
It's not.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, there is that like that kind of feeling of you're being coaxed into something you don't want to do in certain songs, you know. And again, I think that just plays into the themes of it.
Well, that makes sense because it's like, yeah, it feels like getting in bed with somebody you don't want to be in bed with, and that kind of has that terminology like, oh, you're in bed with them.
Yeah, and then and I think the second half, right, if you will, is kind of like you have songs like "Where Is Everybody?" You've given your soul to this corporate entity, and now you're left alone and on your own. You're someone who you thought was your friend but isn't, is a star fucker. They've gone to go smoke the pole of some executive to get a freaking record contract or something. I don't know what Marilyn Manson was into.
So no, like I said,
Marilyn Manson is on his label at the time.
No, I
She
know.
owns the
I think he was fucking with him.
No, I know. I think it's like just a joke. Yeah.
They just had a falling out. I don't know the exact details, but it wasn't good.
So as a
Probably a little
reference
bag.
for these albums, the first one I wasn't a twinkle in my dad's ball sack. The second one, the EP, I was 1. The last one, Downward Spiral, I was 3. So
Hell yeah.
I'm definitely really late to this game.
I'm
I'm not
gonna
gonna tell you that there was any controversy on any album.
if I ever have a child, I'm gonna put headphones on him like this at 3 and make him listen to the Downward Spiral
Damn.
at
My
full
mom-
volume.
My mom put it on my head and made me listen to Enya.
Enya?
And country. And country.
Hell
A lot
no.
of country. A lot of country, which is probably why I resent it so much. I dislike country a lot. That's probably
Sail
why.
away, sail away, sail away.
Trust me, it devolved into Irish folklore music that didn't even speak English. And she would blast it. She would blast
She went through a river dance phase.
She still is. She never left the river, dude. She's still dancing for eternity.
All right, Brandon, the fragile.
I mean, that kind of said my piece while I was kind of just discussing it with Rex, really.
You loved it, didn't you?
I do. I mean, I love all of these albums. That's why I picked them. But yeah, I mean, I like the themes of disillusionment, and the big middle finger to the corporate overlords that were ever present in the '90s and are still ever present. I don't think either disc lets up at all. Like you guys were saying that the right is not as good as the left, and I mean,
That was me. Sorry.
Where Is Everybody is such a banger and such a like a good, you know.
I liked that song. So.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I like them all. The mark has been made. The big come down. That like you got a nice little ambient thing with Ripe with Decay there at the end. And, yeah. So, but yeah, I like the themes of this one.
So, question, Brandon, do you think he kind of went back on his themes, being somebody who does a soundtrack for a Disney movie or something like Soul? Like,
well, we
what
can
is your
discuss
opinion on
that as we move forward.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I was just curious
with this album being out.
No,
I mean,
was
he
just curious.
He has and he hasn't, because he absolutely had songs on soundtracks already, like Lost Highway and
Yeah,
shit
but
like that at the time.
I mean, so I think this album right here is a strong point in his career, because when we get to the next album, I'll kind of like elaborate that on a little bit further. But I would love to hear what Aaron has to say about this one, because I know that we would argue about it in middle school with another old friend of ours.
Pat?
You know, about how this side sucked or this side was better and this, that, and the other thing and all that kind of stuff.
I do not feel that way as an adult. I don't even remember that argument. I mean, I vaguely do, but
I mean, we argue for argument's sake more than likely.
You argue more than more married couples I know. So. Jesus.
Well, we're passionate about what we like, motherfucker, so that's just the way it is.
I don't know if that's the word to describe it, but yes.
I know you want to take it away, but that's what it is. It's passion. Fuck you. Anyway, for
Passion,
me,
chili.
I love The Frail and The Wretched. That is such a good intro into the Wretched. That's got to be one of my favorite songs by him as well. Like top 3 of all time. The Wretched is such a sick ass song.
That beat is so dope.
It really is. And the guitar is awesome, and just the chord. I mean, I fucking love everything about it. I love both discs, honestly. They're very important to me. It's like what Danny said, this is kind of the last of the old school era of Nine Inch Nails. So it's very important. And while I don't quite like it as much as the Downward Spiral, I do still love it. The Way Out is Through is a song I put on everything. Into the Void, Starfuckers, I love it. I love a different version of Starfuckers, though. It's on one of his mini remix albums. There's just another version of it that I prefer over this one. Man, I don't know. I could go on all day about this one, honestly, because
The Way Out Through is sick.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Somewhat Damaged, too, to kick off that first disc is fucking great.
Yeah.
Just like you imagined, Wearing This Together, you guys mentioned that. It's a great one, too. Lemur is one that I love a lot too. That's a standout song. I don't think that's how you say it.
Dude, come on. What did I tell you guys about earlier? We gotta.
Well, Mr. Loose Goose. That's pretty much all I have to say about The Fragile. I do love it. Those are all standout tracks for me, and I was sad at the time. I mean, it wasn't around for it, but when I found out that this was, kind of the dissolve between Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails, it did kind of bum me out. It happened like a year before this album came out or so. So I really enjoyed the two of them working together. They're both fucking freaks, and I loved it. But to move on, let's get to what Rex was talking about. I know we're all kind of antsy to talk about it, and I won't reveal everything before we get to With Teeth, but I do fucking love With Teeth. So let's move into that. Let's go, Danny. Hit us with Teeth.
Well, you love it so much. Why don't you go?
It's just not the order, my bro.
Okay, you were so antsy. I just didn't want to take your thunder.
I just wanted to throw it out there before you guys got into it, because I do really love it. So I'm just curious.
It's called a preface, Daniel-san.
Yeah, exactly.
Picking on me again? Yeah, no, there's some good ones on here. I kind of like this one. This would be like one of the newer ones that I enjoy more, even though this album's 20 fucking years old. The Collector, With Teeth, Only. I kind of like Sunspots, but no, their sound is definitely maturing here in a good way for me. But again, this was like the first album where I kind of was like, okay, their sound is definitely evolving, definitely changing, not in a bad way by any means. But it didn't hit me as hard as those first 3. But the songs I mentioned were ones that kind of stood out to me. I can't get over, like, again, I spoke about this earlier, the way that he sings and his emotion, and like you kind of feel his thoughts and his feelings and like everything he's kind of going through when he's pouring out these lyrics. And so this one to me kind of spoke to me as far as his vocalization was concerned. But it's definitely different from those first three that we talked about. But I actually like this one a lot. I'm right there with you, Practical. I think it's one that I wouldn't say is overshadowed. I wouldn't say any of these are overshadowed except for maybe Ghosts. But we really didn't go through that. But yeah, I like this one a lot. Rex, what did you think of this one? You think this was weird too, or what?
Look, man, all their albums are weird, but that's cool. That's cool. All the ones that I've listened to so far. Maybe I see that we only went up to 2007. I don't know if that's their last album they did, but that's where we stop at. As far as 2007, they're still weird, just a little different type of weird. This album is, I can see what Brandon said earlier. This is their kind of commercial rock band album, or maybe not commercial might be the wrong word to say for them, but it's their band album that kind of feels a lot different than their earlier work to me. Like it's not as weird, still weird in its own way. I think its singing's got quite a bit better in this. I mean, I don't know if this is actually directly after The Fragile, because it's 6 years different. So I don't know if there's another album
remixes and stuff in between, but yeah, this is the
but
next
no like real
album. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, no, he must have spent that time obviously perfecting whatever he was doing because the singing is really great. I love the opening track, All the Love in the World. And this is also the most recognizable album for me, which makes sense. Did I know a damn song off this album? Not a fucking one. But I know the cover art to this album like no other. So that's what I knew about this album going in is like, hey, I know that cover art. It's everywhere. But as far as listening to this, yeah, I really like the sound of this album. The Collector, Only, what's that other one here? Love Is Not Enough. They were good. This album is definitely kind of where the evolution I felt like I was missing from them. Because like the first three that you guys had us listen to didn't sound the same, but they sounded relatively just building off the other, but without going too close to the edge, I guess. And again, this one's more of a commercial one, so maybe that's why this one sounds a little better to me. It's
He's
more
also
mass
sober
appealing.
now too, so there's a little bit.
Oh, he's sober in this?
Yeah.
So that might be a little bit, that might pay tribute to it a bit then. And so like I said, it could be that this was made for more mass appeal, which is why I find it more refined and stuff like that. But if I were still to rate this one, I think I like Downward Spiral a little bit more than this one. But this one's still good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this one's pretty cool. I like that it's more of like a rock and roll centric kind of album, but I always like finish this album kind of like wanting more of that industrial sound, like more like take me back, again, I don't want to take anything away from this. I think this is a cool album because he's kind of at a different place in his life, and it's just like, hey, let's just make a freaking rock album. Let's get the band together and let's get out there and do it. Yeah, and that's cool. And there's a lot of songs where you can see like, maybe some earlier childhood influences, like maybe some like funk and some disco and stuff, like All the Love in the World. But yeah, it's cool. I'm not the biggest fan of the drummer on this one, but that's what makes me, the fact that he's present and so present on this album is what makes me miss the more industrial sound. I like that electric drum sound that Nine Inch Nails in particular uses, but that's just me. Still a sweet album. Only, Hand That Feeds. I have some other ones that I like on this one too. Yeah, All Love in the World.
So, by the way,
what?
Is that a golf pencil?
I don't know. Do they use these in golf?
That looks like a golf pencil. Sorry.
Yeah. Sunspots is a great song too. That's kind of like a deep cutter.
It is a deep cut.
So take it away, Aaron.
So for me, to address I got a bunch of shit to say, but to address a couple things. So Dave Grohl, you're gonna feel the way you feel about him out there. Everyone does. I grew up listening with Dave Grohl, and I think it gets to a point like you want someone like Dave Grohl on your album. He's a great drummer. So whether he's the corporate guy drummer or whatever, he's a really masterful drummer. He could play lots of genres, dude. He did like Probot. He's really, familiar with metal. He started in a punk band called Scream, and then he went on to be in Nirvana and the Foo Fighters, Queens of the Stone Age. He's an all-around guy. So when you
a Tenacious D.
Yeah, exactly. Tenacious D. He's a comedy rock. There you go. Like he's that all around drummer. So I was excited when he joined the ranks for this album. He's even on a Garbage album at this time too, a couple of years later. So I think he brings an element to the sound of this album that I really love. You know, especially in the beginning of. I think it's the Collector. Or no, it's You Know What You Are. That the drum pattern he's doing in that song is fucking wild, and it sounds so sick. And you're just not gonna be able to do that with an electric kit. So there's an element that he's bringing to this album that none of the other albums can ever touch again, because they did have a real drummer on there who knew his shit, and he's just quick with his chops. So do I understand the hate for Dave Grohl? Hell yeah. Am I glad he's on this album? Hell yeah. So
I mean, I wouldn't say I hate him. I just think he's just kind of generic.
yeah, see, I don't agree with that shit at all. Like, generic is a wild term to use for somebody like Dave Grohl.
Well, I mean, because I just associate him with the Foo Fighters, and that's kind of my opinion of them, I guess.
Yeah, I get it. This album really does have that kind of polished club sound to me in a way, like especially songs like "The Hand That Feeds" and the way it comes in. It's just like it's like you're walking up to a club and the door's about to open and shit's just gonna fucking blast you in the face when it does.
It does.
And it does, yeah. And it's fucking sick. Like, I can't underestimate, or I can't underscore to you guys how much I love this album. It really is just so sick to me to have Dave Grohl on it. Because this is really right before his sellout era, even. So it was a big deal at the time. Like, it was just like, fuck yeah, Dave Grohl's on this album. Let's get it. And he delivers to me. And I think, like you guys said about Trent's vocal patterns, also just fucking fantastic. But if I can say some grim things about this album, I will say this. Trent Reznor, like many artists we all love, I'd say at least three of us love Maynard from Tool, and I love Rage Against the Machine. There's always a level of hypocrisy with these guys.
For sure.
So they're going to come out with all these angsty albums talking shit about the man and whatever, and not wanting to make that kind of money or be exploited in this kind of way. But guess what? They still signed those motherfucking contracts. So at the end of the day, they agreed with it. So, it is what it is in that regard, but I always find it necessary to throw out that hypocrisy with these guys because they're rich now. Fucking Trent Reznor works on movie scores, and he gets paid by Apple to help with their sound design. He's a very fucking rich man, and those are all very corporate decisions to make. So
that's what I was going to get to with, I mean, the quote from The Dark Knight reigns true no matter who you're talking about. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. It works in all facets of life. Like, this guy started angry and pissed off at the world, and now he is part of the world that he used to be so angry and pissed off at. He's part of that corporate machine. Apple, they're some of the biggest crooks on the planet, so...
It's just because money talks, baby. Eventually money gets you by the throat, especially when you're already in it. Like, Nine Inch Nails, they already had tons of radio play long before this album, long before this. Like, Closer, again, huge. Put them on the map, basically, when that came out. But they'd already had even some success prior with Pretty Hate Machine. So they were always involved in it, and why I chose to point that out, I don't know. I just like to talk shit about that kind of thing because it's like I understand both sides of it for sure. If I was in the same situation and I was talented enough to be offered a contract like that, you can fucking bet all three of your asses I'm signing that deal. I'm gonna sign it because what?
You said you signed the deal for us.
If I ever get that deal, I'll fucking sign it, all right?
That was a joke.
I might take the Kurt Cobain method.
And get killed by your ex-wife?
Hell yeah. Well, let's segue ourselves into year zero, which, like I mentioned at the beginning of the cast, this is my least favorite of the 5 we listened to. Not because I hate it or anything. I don't think it's a bad album. I'm just kind of, at this point in their career, I was kind of over them. In 2007, I was already on to other shit, screamo, metalcore. So when this came out, I kind of wasn't really into Nine Inch Nails at the time, and that's not their fault.
Yeah.
But let's talk about it, Danny. What about year zero?
I like 3 songs off of this album. That's pretty much it.
Wow.
The beginning of the end, Me, I'm Not, and Meet Your Master. Other than that, I am kind of right there with you. Like, I don't dislike this album by any means, but it's not my favorite of what we listened to or what we were covering. And maybe that's because he got off all that crap he was on and, there's a different sound to it or whatever, which is fine. But at the same time, it just wasn't the Nine Inch Nails that I really like. And it wasn't completely different by any means, but, I don't know. I didn't really vibe with this album as much as the others. So yeah, those ones kind of stood out to me though. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't have much to say about this one because it didn't hit me like it might have hit others. Brandon's probably pissed.
That's cool. Whatever.
Well, year zero for you.
You know what's funny is that this whole drama with these guys being like in Rage Against the Machine, like selling out and stuff. When I was in middle school, the biggest sellout was Good Charlotte. Everybody hated Good Charlotte because they were a sellout, right? Like, yeah, no, they're
Did
like,
they
yeah, Good
start
Charlotte's
as
a sellout.
sellouts? Like, how can you
They're
sell out if
saying
you
like
started it?
Their first
they have
album
that
is actually
song.
awesome.
Yeah, what is it? They have that song "Rich and the Famous," and then the album after that, they're like crying about being famous and rich.
That would be like saying Panic of the Disco sold out. How can you sell out when you're like literally just propped up by, you know, the industry?
They're fucking doing just fine. One's married, or I don't know if they're married, but one's with Cameron Diaz and they have children, and the other one's with Nick Ritchie and they have children. So, uh, fuck Good Charlotte.
Yeah, so that was the band drama when I was going to school. It's terrible. But anyways, this album, definitely in my time, 2007 is the era of when I started. Well, a few years before that, but it's around the time where I started grabbing at everything that was emo, screamo, metal. You know, Black Dahlia Murder, or Darkest Hour, Atreyu. This is when I was getting into all of them. So this album wouldn't even hit my radar.
Yeah.
But listening to it now, it's the one I listen to the least just because of how the order goes. So I didn't get the second playthrough for this one, but it was all right. If I were to say one song that I did like on it, it's probably Me I'm Not. And that was just a quick one I looked at because I was driving to Grass Valley while I was listening to this album. And actually during this album, I had an ice ball come down and hit my windshield and crack the whole fucking thing. But anyways, yeah, no, it's crazy. Yeah, it's a Trent. Screw that guy. He owes me $700. But this album was cool. Listening to it, my girlfriend liked it a lot more than I did. We'll say that.
Yeah.
But it was okay. It was an okay album. I definitely think With Teeth, or if that's what it's called, is way better. It's way better than this one. But I got to give it another listen to because to be all fair, I listened to it the one time, so I can't say fairly if I really cared for it, if it was bad or not to me. But as my first listen to, I liked everything before this one quite a bit more.
Yeah. See, for me, I like this one kind of a lot, actually. I think it's kind of like a return to that industrial sound that I really like. And one thing I wanted to mention, too, with Nine Inch Nails, just in general, is they've really helped me kind of bridge the gap into more electronic music. Like, if it weren't for Trent Reznor and John Carpenter, I probably would never be into, like, electronic music as in the way that I am, you know?
Especially John Carpenter.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a whole subgenre of electronic music called Carpenter Wave, and
I didn't know that.
I fucking love it. I'll send you a list, brother.
Please.
And so, like I said, him going kind of back to that is great. I love the beginning of the end. I can't believe no one mentioned Survivalism. That song rules. You guys can smoke me. The good song.
We haven't gotten to me yet. I would have.
Okay, I love you. Me, I'm not as good. You guys didn't mention Capital G either. Like, that's such a sweet song. And I like this album a lot too because this is a very political album. You know, it's
no shit. That's why you like it.
It's very critical of the administration of the time and the war in Iraq and I mean I think September 11th really had an effect on Trent Reznor as well because he's constantly using that imagery and merch and stuff. Yeah, this is I like this album a lot more than I think you guys do. So yeah, I don't know. It's cool.
I like this album a lot more than I used to. I'll say that because when it came out, I just wasn't feeling it. My headspace was in a just completely different area.
Yeah, if you're getting into more metalcore, this is kind of like a return to more electronic stuff. You're like, get fucked. Where's With Teeth, motherfucker?
Exactly. And I do like a shitload of songs on this album, like Survivalism, Capital G, you mentioned those. Rex, you mentioned Me, I'm Not. That's a great song. Vessel, The Warning, God Given. There's a lot of great songs, and I love political shit in music. That's like some of my favorite shit. So this album fares quite a bit better in their total discography than it used to for me. I'm actually, a fan of it now. It's just compared to the other four we talked about, it doesn't touch those.
Yeah.
honestly, for me.
And
But
it's getting on in its years, and it is also tough to take a lot of like you said, when you have these mega rich guys criticizing, be it the administration or the corporate thumb or whatever. It's like you're part of that. You're a rich ass motherfucker too, and that's
yeah.
at the end of the day, that's what it's all about,
And, I've heard Zach De La Roca from Rage Against the Machines kind of address that shit too. And he's like, well, it's like you're going to have a certain level of stardom to even get your word out there to
Yeah.
begin with. Otherwise, people are not going to even know what
Hey, I'm all
you're
for
about.
people making money and living a good life and stuff, but I also love when people are principled. And I like Zach De La Roca a lot more than I would say I like Tom Morello, because Zach De La Roca kind of like practices what he preaches. He's taken a huge step out of the
He
limelight,
absolutely
does
does.
a lot of work in those political fields. It shows up on our Run the Jewels song every once in a while, but he saw the writing on the wall with his band and the money that it was, and Tom Morello was more than happy to just be like, I'll ride that wave. I don't give a fuck. He does have and to Tom Morello's credit, he is always on message. He's very principled and he's always preached the same thing consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even he has recognized that he's a bit of a hypocrite in the past, because let's all be honest, he's one of the richest guitar players on the planet.
Oh yeah, I mean, every act that's ever kind of done that has admitted, they're a bit hypocrites. Like the Sex Pistols, Rage Against the Machine, fucking Run the Jewels. They all kind of acknowledge it. They'll even speak to it in some of their songs. I do think with Year Zero too, it's worth noting that With Teeth and Year Zero are the first times that Atticus Ross has influenced on the sound. Yeah. So and you can hear that because he's a producer, so you can hear the clear production start to get more and more influenced and focused with Atticus Ross's involvement. He's the full producer alongside Trent Reznor on Year Zero, and they're pretty much locked in after that from 2007. Like they're pretty hip to hip on the productions of these albums. And one I wanted to mention that we didn't really cover on here is Hesitation Marks. I told Brandon that shit the other day. Between Hesitation Marks and The Slip, both of those I came around to those as well. They came out later. Hesitation Marks not quite as much, but The Slip is my favorite of the newer stuff, the more modern version of them. So check them
Hesitation
out
Marks
as well,
will have you dancing.
Yeah, it's really clubby, and it's. And I really have always loved that about Nine Inch Nails. They kind of embrace that aspect of them, and they have since the very beginning. Even Pretty Hate Machine, there's moments of that where you're like, I could be grinding up another fucking person wearing leather in this bitch. Let's go. But yeah, so let's talk about legacy and influence, and then we'll be off for the night. What do you guys think this band's going to be like for the future?
I hope they do more. I know Reznor is all about that score life now, but I know they're doing a tour this year. I'm really hoping I can go, but I think they do maybe one or two more. I would hope. What that'll sound like, I don't know, but I feel like with the influence that Trent Reznor has, and this is a hot take, and you guys can disagree with me or agree with me, he's probably one of the best frontmen of our generation, and I think that he's earned that, right? Not because of his vocal abilities and his lyricism, but like what he's done after the fact. I think people need to respect him a lot more than they already do, but I know he gets a lot of respect, but I think he deserves a lot more. In my opinion, at least he does. Because he's an amazing person. I mean, how else do you put it? Like, is he a composer? Sure. Is he a musician? Absolutely. But for me, it's always been that raw emotion that he has, not only in his lyrics, but like the way that he holds himself and carries himself. And he's, responsible for his wrongdoings and being the drug addict that he was. And I think that he's evolved from that and got a lot better. But again, I don't think he's talked about enough, and maybe it's just me. I don't know. I don't feel like this band, especially, gets the recognition that it deserves. But for me, it's like they're a top 20 band for me. They're not a top 10 or 5 for me, only because I have different tastes. But I appreciate what they've done for music, both lyrically, musicianship wise, and composership wise. But their legacy will hold on for a long time. Obviously, Hurt was a big enough song to be covered by Johnny Cash. I said it right this time. And just, I don't know. I always tell people, like, you gotta just really listen to a Nine Inch Nails album and really hear his pain, his suffering, his experience, so to speak, to really understand how great of a band they are. Whether it's just him or the other musicians he's used or toured with, like that they're an experience, and I would like to experience that one day myself, honestly.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I actually forgot to bring that up. So I saw Nine Inch Nails during With Teeth. So I got to see that tour, and when I tell you guys it was one of the fucking greatest experiences of my life, I 100% mean it. I mean, it blew my fucking mind. That is like a top 3 concert
Yeah,
for me ever.
it's
Like,
not a fucking hell of a show.
it was great, dude. And like just With Teeth hit me at that moment too. So when I got to go to that show and hear them play, they played almost the whole fucking album. God damn it, it was sick. But anyway, I just had to intervene there. Hey, we're talking Nine Inch Nails. We're already getting blasphemous. I'm just rolling with the punches.
You're blasphemous.
What about you, Rex? What about you? How do you feel about their legacy and impact as a newer listener?
Well, now I know that what the age of this band is. It's obvious they inspired Genesis.
Yeah.
Anyways, but no, these guys are sweet. And listening to this, it's kind of like a lot of this other older stuff you guys have me listen to is now when I listen to this stuff, I hear all these different bands that I've listened to my whole life, like in this stuff. And these guys are no different. Like inspiration obviously is drawn from these guys heavily throughout new metal and even screamo and all that kind of stuff and all that. So I think, obviously they've got something. Not everybody gets on a train like this if it sucks normally. I don't know. People like certain things, but at the time, especially in '89, it's incredible that there was already somebody kind of this forward thinking in rock and like progressing it. And even if it's called industrial and people are, making cars to this shit. Either way, it's still awesome. It's still awesome. It definitely I can see now like more what happened to music because of these guys, because of
But
Trent
it's crazy
Reznor.
how that first album, I hate to fucking be an annoying repeating piece of shit, but like that first album, it just doesn't sound like 1989.
It doesn't.
You know,
It
which is
really doesn't. It's
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
It's
watching
insane.
Akira for the first time, dude. Like, that wasn't made in the movies. Or in the 80s, I'm sorry.
That was made in the movie.
Yeah, it was a movie, no, but like they were so ahead of their time with those first
Yes.
few albums, and I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so no, it's just really cool to go back and kind of see where all these influences actually came from and how big of an influence all these bands actually were. Yeah, that's what I see from their legacy, and obviously I'll check out some of their other stuff, some of their newer stuff, and everything like that. But I think they're solid as hell.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I think his legacy will last the test of time. I mean, obviously these albums are hugely impactful at the time they came out, and especially like the Downward Spiral, Pretty Hate Machine, The Fragile. The first 4 we listened to and With Teeth are really, I think, going to be the ones that people look back to the most as like his prime era. But now he's, you got the main man, Trent Reznor, in the movies, so his name is plastered, on those movies. And if anyone has any inkling of like, I really like the music in this movie, and they look him up, they'll ultimately be led to Nine Inch Nails, for better or worse.
You might not like what comes, yeah.
But and I think that's hugely powerful. The fact that he's kind of, I don't know if I want to say elevated to movies or maybe taken a step back. No matter what he's doing it at the same level that he's always doing, and he's doing it on kind of his own terms. He's always kind of been part of that Interscope record label, which is like the Dr. Dre one, right?
They're like a subsidiary. Interscope owns Aftermath, so it's just like they own Nothing Records, which is Trent Reznor's label. So it's all intertwined.
So yeah, I mean, I want to know who in the industry pissed him off enough to make The Fragile.
That's probably those record execs at Interscope.
Yeah, but like I said, he's been with them his entire career. So I mean, maybe he's got a good relationship with someone there. But so is Dre. There's always been a tumultuous periods, I suppose. Yeah, and either way, I'm kind of going off on a tangent there.
Shut up.
I think he's a hugely impactful artist, and he's one that challenges you. So I always kind of like that.
Challengers.
Absolutely. I agree with everything he said. I think it can't be understated the effect on pop culture that Nine Inch Nails has had as well. They're one of the most widely known bands of all time. You know, Trent Reznor was massively influenced by Prince to play all the instruments on an album, which is something Prince was very known for doing, and he's a big fan of him. And I think it's great when somebody like Prince, who is just a legend, influences another legend for a new generation. And those are all pretty great things. So I think, again, Nine Inch Nails should be appreciated. And, you know, they're kind of like the goth kings of their era. They were like the Cure of the 90s, kind of in a way. So if I
see.
A little darker than the Cure. Also.
I was trying to get a rise out of you. Sorry.
He's absolutely not, you son of a bitch. But anyway,
kidding.
yeah, they're definitely a little darker, but that's how it goes. You raise the bar. So the Cure addressed these things. Trent Reznor's like, all right, I see your Cure, and I'm gonna raise you fucking drinking some other dude's semen. That's just the way of it.
I'm down.
So that was Ohio band Nine Inch Nails. Let's talk about what we got next week, fellas. What's on the agenda? Does anybody remember, or is Danny just gonna keep making porno sounds?
I know it's a director I've never heard of.
His name is William Friedkin.
I'm freaking excited.
Did a little movie called The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
We will not be talking about that movie. We're gonna skip it because
we should talk about it now, though.
we can talk about it in the episode, but we won't.
I'm sure
we
The
won't spend a lot of time on
will come up.
Yeah,
I'm sure it will.
we're going to talk about 5 of his lesser known films. We're going to talk about The French Connection. Maybe not lesser known.
The French Connection.
Yeah, maybe not lesser known, but just when you compare them to The Exorcist, lesser known. Let's put it that way. The French Connection, Cruising, To Live and Die in L.A., which Bont is going to be wetting his shorts over.
I'm right there with him, dude. That guy's hog is magnificent.
The Sorcerer and Killer Joe. So
not the Sorcerer, just Sorcerer.
Sir, right.
How drunk have you gotten over the course of this episode?
Okay, can you give me some background context, folks? It's St. Patrick's Day. I work in the service industry. You may have seen me catch a few cough medicine drops over here. Leave me alone, please.
That's what we call getting twisted, folks.
No, it's not.
All right. Well, as always, I'm your host, Practical.
This is your boy, Ray.
And I've been Brandon, guys. I hope you have a great week.
Yeah. I'll kill you all. Unbelievable.
Happy
What are you
St. Patrick's
talking about?
Day.
I'm really sorry. If we get in trouble, you can take it out of me.
Fine, dude.
Whoa. All right, Leprechaun.
I'm just going to call you out because it's been a steady...
You've been... St. Patrick's Day. Notice how none of these other 3 fucks are wearing green.
I have my little Godzilla pin that I was going to wear.
Does not count, you pussy.
I got cash in my wallet, so... I got dollars.
Kill this. We'll catch you next week.